question I was given was, are effective measures possible by fall? And I'll just say yes, for some interventions they are, and for others they are not. They're just too disruptive and take too long and too much money at this point if they haven't been started. So I'm not going to get into detail on this, but schools are critical environments. We've already heard that. I just wanted to point out that children spend about 20% of their time inside of school buildings when they're school age. That's more than all other environments combined, indoor and outdoors, except for their home. And schools are such an important enterprise. About 20% of the US population spends 6 or more hours in schools every day, every school day, every weekday. And study after study, as has been pointed out, shows that indoor air quality and ventilation in schools is important and also impact local communities. I'll say as a gross generalization that schools were pretty unhealthy before pandemics. I've studied a lot of schools in Texas. This is a plot of the air exchange rates in schools. The dotted lines are where ASHRAE 62.1 2019, the standard is for high school class, for these particular high school classrooms, 47 classrooms. You can see in permanent classrooms, we're often 1/2 to 1/3 of the ASHRAE standard before the pandemic. So when that happens, and you survey teachers and staff, you hear a lot about them being bothered by odors, students complaining of odors, students saying that the odors affect their work. That's a sure sign that something's wrong. All right, so our goal should be to reduce risk by reducing inhaled dose. At least that's what I'm going to talk about. Without getting into all the details and what inhalation dose is, there are 3 things that we can control: the amount of time we spend in an environment, our breathing rates in an environment. The higher our respiratory minute volume, the greater the intake of virus-laden aerosols, and then the concentration or levels of aerosol particles per liter of air, say. All right, so I'm going to focus on that. And that concentration, if you just use a simple steady state sort of maximum concentration value, is a function of a lot of things, right? I'm going to look at the concentration of particles in number per liter. And to reduce that concentration of particles, we can wear a mask, as Lindsay just said, because we're interested in the concentration in our breathing zone inside the mask. We can lower the emissions by testing and mandatory masks, which reduce the emissions from the infector. Increase ventilation, this term lambda here in the denominator. Use proven particle controls, this term in the denominator, or make use of volume of the space, right? And so I'm going to focus on increased ventilation and increased filtration in my next couple of slides. So for ventilation, what we're trying to do is increase this value of lambda, the air exchange rate, as much as possible, which drops the concentration in room air, whether that's a teacher's room or whether it's a classroom, a teacher's break room, et cetera. I do want to say that the best thing we can do, if possible, is to have as many activities outdoors as possible. Increase benches, stools brought outdoors, whiteboards, chalkboards. I hear a lot of complaints about this idea, and I just want to say that you can't do it all the time, but whenever you can be outdoors, meet outdoors, have class meetings outdoors if possible. Mechanical ventilation, there's lots of different types, including unit ventilators and centralized systems. It's too late to make significant system upgrades at this point. Really needed to start at that in spring of 2020, and too much of America dragged its feet, and that didn't happen. So, but we can in systems that in schools that have existing HVAC systems that are centralized. We should open outdoor air dampers as much as we can, and definitely disable demand control ventilation. We want to continue to ventilate classrooms when students are out of them for recess or at lunch period before they come back. So those things can be done. And blue here means things that can be done now and quickly. Natural ventilation, open windows and control the flow with fans in or out or both. The design of that is important. You don't want to have 2 windows that are right next to each other that are open, where air is flowing in one and out the other, and you get short circuiting. So there's some design of it. For schools that have operable windows, that can be done right now. For filtration, we're dealing with this term here, which is a clean air delivery rate, the single pass removal efficiency for particles of size I times the volumetric flow rate through the device divided by the volume of the space. And this entire term here has the same units as air exchange rate per hour, for example. So sometimes people combine these two and talk about an equivalent ventilation rate. What we should be doing here is upgrading system filters, as you see here, upgrade from MERV 8 to MERV 13 filters at Portland State University. Use the highest MERV possible to increase the single pass removal efficiency. It's not possible to do this by the start of the school year. if you haven't already procured MERV 13 filters or better filters. And it's a disruptive activity. You need to shut down the system while you're doing it. So it needs to be done at night and weekends. It's probably too late to do that before the school year for schools that haven't opened, but it is possible to do it during the school year if done at the right time. And then do regular inspections for gaps and bypasses. You can see here at one school we tested in Texas, where pretty much a lot of flow doesn't go through the filter at all. And regular inspections for that kind of thing are really important now. Lastly, portable HEPA air cleaners can be very effective. Same part of the equation here. The clean air delivery rate is this top term, eta times Q, and that's what you will normally find when you try to purchase one of these units. To convert to an equivalent air exchange rate, all you do is take the clean air delivery rate, divide by the volume, multiply by 60 to convert from minutes to hours. And I just show you an example here for a relatively, well, it's a smaller size classroom, but not unreasonable classroom with a clean air delivery rate, with a device with a clean air delivery rate of 300 cubic feet per minute. That gives you sort of a jolt of an additional 3.8 per hour equivalent ventilation. So if we're starting with 2 per hour, and a lot of classrooms I've tested in Texas start with a lot lower than that, but if we start at 2 air changes per hour, and we use the clean air delivery rate that I just showed you, a HEPA-based system with that clean air delivery rate, for that classroom, we go from 2 to 5.8 per hour, which leads to a 66% reduction in virus-laden particle concentrations in air. If you add that to relatively mediocre masks being worn by everybody that give you an effective 75% reduction in inhaled dose, we get to 92% reduction in inhaled dose just from everybody wearing relatively mediocre masks and having a good portable HEPA air cleaner in the classroom. That's pretty good. And that is possible by early fall term. And it's relatively cheap. I've worked out the costs of this for one good portable air cleaner in a classroom of 25 students. The cost works out, capital cost, recurring filter replacement costs, electricity costs of about $10 per student per year. That's 2 venti Americanos per student per year. And I want to remind everybody that it costs us about $15,000 per year to educate one student in the United States. So I think $10 is a pretty darn good investment in the future. If you can't procure portable HEPA air cleaners fast enough, or you don't have the money, you can roll your own, and building your own can be pretty effective. They can be built quickly. This can be done quickly before school starts for many schools or early in the school year. And I know that the team that's up next is going to discuss these in more detail, so I'll end there. Thank you very much.